Monday night edition of the Anaheim Calling podcast. New week, new set of games to get into for the Ducks, who dropped their first game of the week, also their last game of this Eastern road trip. A very odd game start time, 10 a.m. for those of us on the West Coast. Of course, still a little weird if you're on the East Coast, 1 p.m. Jake, explain to me, like I'm sure many people are wondering, why is the NHL scheduling games on a Monday morning during the work week? It seems a little odd.
I
It
mean,
seems like
I
it seems like maybe not the best way to draw the biggest live audience. I
I
don't know.
I
Maybe I'm
think
crazy.
I think this is something you should take over, seeing as it might be a holiday that for your people, and then they've also just added an American holiday and use that as an excuse to have early games.
Ah, okay. So you're thinking that because it's Canadian Thanksgiving,
Correct.
that okay. I mean, I actually hadn't thought about that. Living in this American bubble here,
Yeah.
that maybe that is the case. Maybe, just maybe,
Yeah.
that the television audience kind of outweighs whatever lost audiences on this side. It is possible. It is certainly possible. Whatever. It doesn't matter. We're still going to talk about the game regardless. I just thought it was a little funny
Yeah.
seeing at like
So
9:45 a.m.
yeah,
Kyle Shohara and Eric Stevens tweeting out lines. It's like, oh, this is odd.
yeah. It definitely seems like it's a situation where they played games in Canada because Canadian Thanksgiving, and then also with it being
But
Columbus.
Anaheim,
Well,
Boston, is that a draw in Canada?
Columbus Day and
Columbus Day, yes.
Indigenous People Day is also how it's
Yes.
been framed now.
Yes.
Um,
Yes, these very noteworthy
hey,
holidays. Well, I mean, Indigenous
well,
People Day is one thing, but Columbus Day, come on.
I wonder if people on the East Coast get it off because I've
Well, federal employees get it off.
yeah, because traffic was very light this morning. It was actually really nice. So I don't know. Maybe people on the East Coast get it off, and so that's why schools might be out on the East
I have no
Coast.
idea. If you know about this, let us know, because I guess it makes sense. So this is going to be my final conclusion and also my final statement on this topic, is that due to the fact that one significant portion of the NHL's audience, which is in Canada, is off today, and that a decent chunk of the American audience is off, that is worth scheduling these games in the morning.
Yeah, let's go with
And can
that.
we let's work with that? I mean, it's a little odd. It's a little odd. I still don't support it. I'm mainly just mad. I think I'm a little biased, but that's okay. That's okay. But let's get into the Ducks side of things here, though. So some interesting moves pregame that I don't think any of us really saw coming. Sam Steele making his return
Yeah,
to the lineup. Isac Lundestrom remaining out of the lineup, but maybe just maybe the most noteworthy thing, at least to me, was that you saw Devin Shore get scratched in
yeah.
favor of Sam Steele. So that would mean Max Jones and Max Comtois in the lineup both at the same time, which is not really something that we anticipated,
Mm-mm.
going through the season, that those two would be in the lineup at the same time. So it turns out that the Ducks are willing to do that. So the scratches tonight, today, Delorier and Shore, which I thought was interesting.
Yeah, I mean, it's not so much Steele coming in for sure. I know that's the person you instantly want to view as the person that he's coming in for because Shore played at center in the last game. But it's more so him coming in, Sam Steele coming in for essentially Isac Lundestrom, Devin Shore going out of the lineup for Max Jones. The interesting thing is, did you ever see them announce another roster move in addition to Sam Steele playing? Because in order for Steele to play, he had to have been activated off IR. In order for that to happen, someone would have to either be sent down or someone placed on IR. So maybe Brendan Gooley was placed on injured reserve. Maybe Isac Lundestrom was sent down, but I did not see anything announced. I can try to take a quick look, see if I can find anything on the Ducks website, but when I was kind of scouring the internet for some information on it, I could not find anything on it.
Yeah, no, it would appear. I think the most logical thing is that Brendan Gooley has been placed on IR. And I guess, I don't know if you want to verify that, but
Uh,
that seems like the most reasonable thing to
well,
me.
if we're going by the Ducks website, which has weirdly been reliably correct in terms of who's on the roster and who's not, and injured
Mhm.
reserve, Isac Lundestrom is no longer listed on the Ducks website.
Yeah, I mean, I would assume that he's been sent down. There was no, I checked earlier today and I checked again just now. There's no mention of that on AHL transactions, which has been decently reliable, but is also sometimes a
We're
day behind.
we're getting in the Twitch chat that a lot of people are saying Lundstrom was sent back down to San Diego.
But from where though? Where's the reporting on that?
So those people saying that, if you want to give us a link to where that's coming from, that would probably
You
be
guys,
the
you guys know better than we do.
yeah.
Um, yeah, I mean, regardless, it sounds like maybe that's the more likely option. Either way, it's not that groundbreaking. Although it would be nice to know whether or not Gooley is indeed on injured reserve, because that can have some ramifications. But yeah, I mean, I just found this lineup interesting because Sam Steele is promoted to a pretty good line. I mean, with Comtois and Kasha, and then Richie Getzlaff, Terry, Jones, Grant, and Rowney. I like that as a fourth line for the Ducks. I think Jones, Rowney, and Grant together is probably better. I mean, because I think Shore seems to, it's either Shore or Jones, I think, for that fourth line spot. What I don't really understand is why Grant is such a fixture on the fourth line, whereas you would think that Jones, Shore, Rowney would be better than that line. But coaches seem to love Derek Grant, whether it's Randy Carlisle or whether it's Dallas Aikens. Derek Grant just seems to get a lot of love from the coaches.
Yeah, he kind of. I think it's because he kind of fits what you want in a modern day fourth line role. He's not gonna be he's not gonna go out there and throw his body around on every shift, but he's, I guess, more quote unquote defensively sound. We could get into the merits of that with looking at some of his numbers, but I think at least from a reputation standpoint, he's defensively sound. He's good in faceoffs. All the stuff that coaches like to see from a fourth line center. That's typically what kind of Derek Grant brings. And really quickly, cap friendly depth charts did mention that Sam Steele has been activated off IR and is in the lineup. Appears Isac Lundestrom has been sent down.
Okay, yeah, that seems like the most likely thing, but I guess we can't really say until it's been fully confirmed. Yeah, I mean, so if this is indeed Isac Lindestrom's last showing for a while, any takeaways from his showing here early in the season?
I don't think he had that big of an impact. I think he was fine, but it's not as if he had a huge impact on the roster. He didn't make any huge plays. I think he looked fine, but he didn't stand out to me as someone who needs to be on the Ducks team right now.
Yeah, I think that he pretty clearly still needs some seasoning in the AHL before he can be an impact player in the NHL. It's weird because I used to be really of the belief that if a guy isn't really making an impact at the NHL early on, it's not a great indicator of his potential. And I still believe that to a degree, but I also think that AHL seasoning can, in fact, be beneficial. I know that our good friend John Broadbent is not too happy with the goals beginning to the season, and I would say that Lundestrom's return should definitely help.
Yeah, and John also over at the Defend the Nest blog and the Defend the Nest account did tweet out that Lundestrom is available for the Goals home opener. So there's also that. So that's definitely a good sign for Goals fans out there that you're going to have probably, I mean, what one would assume is their top line center available for their home opener.
Yeah, so a lot on the forwards there. To quickly touch on the blue line, no changes. Like I mentioned, Gooley's still out, which means that we would get another game of the infamous Del Zotto Fowler pairing, which has not been good in the two games that it's been together. The Ducks are kind of missing Brendan Gooley right now, even though some of the Ducks' underlying numbers have been good. That pairing in particular has not been good in the games it's been together, and wasn't good again in this game. So that's an area of concern because we don't really know how long Gooley is going to be out. It seems kind of like a bit of a phantom injury that's reoccurring.
Well,
which is always a little concerning.
Yeah, and it's a concern because it's a similar thing or similar story to last season. He came to the Ducks, played maybe 3 to 5 games, something in that range, got hurt, and maybe played part of one more game after that. And so it's concerning because you don't want this type of thing to linger. I do wonder how much of this is Jeremy Bettle's impact on the roster with load management, or not load management, but essentially understanding that you don't want to rush guys back. And we heard reports of Sam Steele skating for basically the entire past week, and it wasn't until tonight I'm gonna say that a bunch today and keep screwing myself up. It wasn't until this.
How about we just accept using the terminology tonight?
Yeah,
we'll try not to. But
yeah,
let's just accept.
Yeah, it's happening. So sorry for everyone out there that's got a bug. But it wasn't until tonight/today that Sam Steele got into the lineup. So it really seems like they want guys to be fully healthy and fully ready to go, basically. And so maybe that's the same situation with Brendan Gooley, is that maybe he could have pushed it and gone today, but instead they wanted to really give him time and allow himself to get himself to as close to 100% as he can before they get him back into the lineup.
Yeah, I mean, there's no way of knowing.
Well, and
we're kind of speculating.
The other thing that I do want to say is, if it was a very serious injury, I would assume they would have called someone up by now, because they're only carrying 7 defensemen, and that's including Brendan Gooley. So I tend to believe it's not that serious of an injury, because if it was, they would have brought someone up, anyone, whether maybe it might be our good buddy Yanni Hakanpää, get called up to basically be that 7th defenseman, just in case while they're on this road trip someone got hurt.
Yeah, it's really tough to say. I'm just kind of not going to try to say a whole lot until we actually get some news, which is probably a bit of a fool's errand, only because teams in the NHL are usually very tight-lipped when it comes to injury reports.
Yep.
So we'll just have to see. Let's actually get into this game, though. So early on in the game, it was interesting because if you look overall, and we'll have plenty of opportunities to talk about this, but the Ducks played a solid game against one of the best teams in the NHL and didn't pull out the W. We'll get into the reasons why, but let's just kind of get into the goals here. Let's just cover them because there are a decent amount. What really killed the Ducks this morning, sometime in the last 24 hours, what really killed them?
What killed them in the game?
What killed them in the game was the special teams. I mean, really, once again, it's kind of becoming a theme here. Not just their own power play, but also the penalty kill. The Ducks' power play remains scoreless this season, and looking at this penalty kill, it was a bit of a disaster. There's really no way of. I mean, it's hard to totally call it a disaster because you are conceding goals to one of the best units in the league, especially David Pastrnak, who would get the first goal of the game. Totally forgotten in the right circle. I mean, if there's one thing you can't do on the power play against the Boston Bruins, it's forget David Pastrnak alone in that right circle. And sure enough, that's exactly what happened, which again, like I was talking about earlier, why Derek Grant seems to have a stranglehold on that fourth line center spot, whereas no one else seems to. It's interesting because although this goal isn't totally on him, him and Rowney were the forwards out there, and they both kind of seemed a little out of position. It's also a perfect shot by Pastrnak, makes no mistake. Time's kind of an errant pass right past John Gibson. I mean, there's really not a whole lot John Gibson can do there.
Yeah.
But once again, a theme that we've talked about aplenty now this season, penalties. I mean, Michael Del Zotto, a slash on Charlie Coyle to put the Bruins on that power play. That's it's not what you want. And it's just giving, again, it's like I was saying a couple of games ago, it's giving the other team a chance to beat you.
Well, and so first thing I do want to mention is the pass from Patrice Bergeron to find David Pastrnak is insane. Nice feat. It's a really nice pass. And I mean, we've talked about this a whole lot, that you get the goalie to move, it opens up holes. And we mainly try to talk about that in the Ducks' perspective. But you look at this goal, and that was definitely that situation where the puck goes from the middle of the ice to the side, and it forces Gibson to move, and it opens up holes. And so it's not a great play. I mean, it's a good goal, but there's a whole lot of things here. First off, it's funny because we had that conversation about face-offs a while ago and on special teams and all that stuff. The Ducks won that face-off. They won that face-off and proceeded to not get it out of the zone. So for everyone out there that wants to harp on you need to win face-offs, the Ducks won that one and instantly turned it over. And so just because they won it didn't mean anything. And that's kind of what I try to harp on with when I talk about face-offs is winning them's fine. You need to have guys out there that can do something with the puck once you've won it, though. And so
Well, see,
maybe
I was
having
led. I was led to believe that face-offs were really, really important.
yes,
Was I wrong about? Have I been misled?
maybe just a little bit. Maybe talking about face-offs 10 times, 15 times every single period is not the best thing to do because it doesn't actually mean what everyone
Well,
thinks it
so
does.
we're trying to do a better job here on the show of sometimes we assume that our listeners
Yeah.
know what we talk about, and we do have, I think, a solid base of listeners who kind of know what we're referring to. But just for those who are newer or just don't remember, I'm not going to hold it against you that you're not keeping track of the day to day of hockey analytics and discussions and debates on Twitter. But basically, if you watch an NHL broadcast, you would be led to believe that faceoffs are of critical importance, but it's been studied just doing really simple regression plots that basically faceoffs don't really correlate that strongly with winning. And they also, not even just with winning, but they also don't really correlate that strongly with actually winning, for example, the shot attempt battle. And so if the shot attempt battle is more predictive of winning than faceoffs, then why should we? And bear in mind that shot attempts are still only slightly predictive. Then why should we place so much importance on faceoffs? It's not to say that they don't matter. It's just that there's enough evidence that they're not nearly as important as you would believe just watching a broadcast. Because if you're watching a broadcast, they're constantly talking about faceoff plays and set plays. And my own theory on this, or not really my own theory, but it's a theory that I've heard that I buy, is just that faceoffs are so easily, just for even the broadcaster, they're easily diagrammable. You can get the pen out on the teleprompter and it's just an easy thing to kind of draw up. Same thing with coaches. It's an easy thing that you can control. But at the end of the day, it's not part of the flow of the game. So important in some respects, just not really overall.
And it's funny because people will look at faceoffs, as I'm talking with Derek Grant and Carter Rowney right here, and people will look at faceoffs and say, oh, this player's great defensively because he's good at faceoffs. And I heard that mentioned with Patrice Bergeron specifically is, one of the things he does great and why he's won a Selke is he's so good at faceoffs. No,
you think back to guys like Manny Malhotra, guys who at the end of their careers are winning 60. Antoine Vermette, a pretty good recent example for the Ducks, would always be an ace in the faceoff circle, but the Ducks would be getting outplayed when he was out there.
Yeah. And
so clearly the faceoffs were not that important.
Yeah, and so Patrice Bergeron is a great center and a great hockey player. What makes him great is not that he's good at faceoffs. If he was bad at faceoffs, that wouldn't change that he's great. And
it still wouldn't matter.
And really quickly, Bob Shockey asked, if possession matters, faceoffs matter, right? And so, yes, you want to win them. It's better to win a faceoff than to lose it. But you want to have players out there that can win a faceoff and then do something with the puck. At the end of the day, all a faceoff is a puck battle. And I said this, I think, a couple weeks ago on this show also, that all it is a puck battle. Granted, I think you said it's a scripted, or not scripted, it's a
scripted puck battle.
It's a scripted puck battle. And so you can end up having the puck and win it, but then there's going to be another puck battle right afterwards, potentially, if the people jump up and get it on the puck. And so what happened on this was the Ducks won the faceoff, but then they make the play because I don't know who actually got the puck, but they tried to rim it up the board to get it out, and it didn't actually get out of the zone. So the faceoff didn't actually matter. The puck ended up with the Bruins. The Bruins could have won that faceoff, and we could have ended up with the same end result. So the faceoff didn't really have an impact on that play.
Right, and just a last note here before we have to get into our first break. We haven't even made it through the first period, I guess we'll just jump ahead. One thing I did want to add, though, yes, it's this logical equation in your head. If possession is important and faceoffs give you possession, then faceoffs must be important. However, you're making a bit of a leap there logically because you're assuming that once you've won the faceoff, that you're going to get possession and maintain possession.
Yes.
Just because you win a faceoff doesn't mean you're actually going to have 30 uninterrupted seconds with the puck. Anything can happen once the puck has been dropped.
And that's why I tend to say all a faceoff is a puck battle. Because there's so many puck battles in every single game. And so when you equate it to every single puck battle that happens throughout the course of the game, it kind of... Because the thing with faceoffs is there are these plays that you can isolate. And so there's only a certain amount of those plays. But if you increase the amount, it lowers the importance of that singular one. It makes... Exactly. Instead of it being one of 20 or 30, it's one of 100, for instance.
Right.
And so that's where I think
Yeah.
this comes in.
Yeah. So on that note, after just totally going off script and destroying face-offs, although that's not what we're trying to do, we're going to go into our first break. Okay, back from the first break. So sorry for that aside, but we're trying to do a better job, again, of keeping everyone in the loop and just not assuming that everyone knows all of these things.
And one thing I do want to add, anyone who's watching live in the Twitch chat, if there's ever something where you want us to elaborate on it, I monitor the Twitch chat. I try to leave questions until the end. But if there's something we talked about that you want us to elaborate on, kind of say why that matters, go for it. Throw it in the Twitch chat, and we'll try to take a little bit of time to explain that.
Please do. Okay, let's get into the second period here. So one thing I did want to point out, early in the second, I mean, barely 2 minutes in, Max Jones gets a glorious, and I mean glorious, opportunity on a 3-on-1. Has just about all the time in the world. I mean, he could have made probably 2 or 3 sandwiches by the time that the Bruins back checkers had actually caught up to him, and shoots it basically into the chest of Yaroslav Halak, which this is something that we're going to have other chances to talk about on this show. But first off, Max Jones, we've noted, always has really good on-ice shot metrics and individual shot metrics. So far in his career has had a really bad shooting percentage, and a play like that he could have easily scored there, but that trend seems to be holding, at least so far into the season, for him. Do the Ducks have a bit of a finishing problem? Are they going to become that kind of team?
It's too early.
I mean, it's too early.
It's too early.
It's too early. Okay, but that aside, that cop out aside, do you, specifically for Max Jones, like, because I think that, like, I'll just say it, since apparently you're going to cop out. I don't actually know you're going to cop out there, but I'm just saying that to mess with you. I think that with Max Jones, it's interesting because he's really good at getting into those spots, and it doesn't seem like maybe he has the finishing touch as of yet to be a high conversion guy. However, I would still prefer betting on him long term, on at least improving that number by even a marginal amount, than a guy who has trouble getting to those spots to begin with. Agree, disagree? Or are you out on Max Jones?
No, I'm not out on Max Jones. I think it's still too early to tell. I know you're going to say that's a cop-out.
I'm totally kidding. That's honestly what we should say for most things. But, hey, we got to give the people what they want. People want hot takes. People don't want this nuanced, balanced conversation. No one wants that. No one wants that at all. Okay, moving on here. David Pasternak's second goal of the game. Brad Marchand would steal a puck down low. Really brutal turnover here. Kind of uncharacteristically bad turnover from Hampus Lindholm. I will give him somewhat of the benefit of the doubt, only because the Ducks were kind of going through a line change, and he didn't really have a whole lot of support. Also, just we don't see Hampus Lindholm make these types of mistakes. Also, it is Brad Marchand on the other side of that, which, one of the best 5-on-5. I mean, one of the very best 5-on-5 players in the league. Also, Josh Manson late to get there. Again, he was changing as well. So Marchand just slips it across the slot, gets to Pasternak, and that would make it 2-0 Boston. So not exactly what you would want. However, at the end of the second period, Rickard Rakell, who I think has had a really good start to the season, off of a nice little feed from Adam Henrique in the neutral zone, a nice little backhander, just kind of feathering it across into an area. Rakell then just skates it in, has a lot of momentum going into his shot, shoots it on net, uses the defender as a screen. I think it did deflect off of a stick, or it kind of ramped up off the defender stick. Regardless, I mean, when you're using the defender as a screen, you're opening up the possibility of that happening, and beats Yara Halak rather cleanly. And that would make it just a 1-goal deficit for Anaheim. But I got to say, first off, Rickard Rakell has looked really good this season. And also, we'll get into this a little bit here after we're done recapping the game, but Adam Henrique and Rickard Rakell and Soderberg, that's becoming a nice little trio for the Ducks.
It definitely has been. Do we need to come up with a name for those guys?
I'll let you come up with that, because I don't want the pressure. I don't want the pressure.
2 R's and an S. What can I come up with here? Whatever. They've looked really good. They definitely
Someone in
have.
the Twitch chat, give us a nickname.
Yeah, and I think we touched on it a bit last game, but what ends up working out well with this line is Silverberg and Raquel do a great job of getting their own shots, and Henrique does a good job of providing puck support there. And that's kind of what he's done well so far. I do want to backtrack slightly in this game, not trying to go off of Silverberg, Raquel, and Henrique, but seeing as we're at the first Ducks goal in this game, we should make mention of the power play. Because the Ducks had 3 power plays up until that point, and we're not able to cash in. And I'm curious if you have any thoughts on the power play and kind of what's going on with it. If you think that it's actually a major issue, that's a really big talking point right now is the power play in terms of Ducks fandom, Ducks Twitter, that the power play is crap, basically, and that everything needs to change. What's your opinion on that?
I mean, it's tough because I think the Ducks did do a bit of a better job today of at least deploying their better players. That's always step one. Step one of any great power play is just put the right guys on the ice. Now, again, maybe I'm being a little arbitrary in who I think's better and who's not. But the one thing that, again, I'm still seeing is Nick Ritchie shouldn't have more ice time on the power play than Troy Terry. Yes, it is just a 5-second difference, but Troy Terry should be up there. In tonight, for example, Henrique, Silverberg, Raquel topped out at 5 minutes. The first unit guys were in that kind of high 3s to 5 minute range. Terry shouldn't be very clearly in the second unit. He should be a part of that first unit. And you saw it in the first period. When he's out there, he's making plays in the neutral zone. Now, he did have a turnover at the Bruins blue line, and it didn't cause an on-man rush the other way. But the way that he plays is a little riskier. But to me, the reward is well worth any potential risk, which is vastly overstated when the goal is to score, not to prevent a goal on the other side. So I think maybe Dallas Eakins is just trying to make him earn it. I mean, he doesn't want to hand him power play time, that he's viewing power play time as something to be earned, which I get it, from a locker room chemistry perspective, that's what you want. But from an on-ice results perspective, that just doesn't seem to be working. And that's at some point going to become an issue.
Let me change that question then, or the question for you. Do you think the power play is a major concern for this Ducks team, seeing as they have not scored on it? We're 7 games in? Is it concerning to you that they do not have a power play goal yet? Or do you think this situation, just so you know, this is my thought, that it's a small sample size? It's 7 games. They haven't had that many power plays. Eventually it will work itself out a bit. And I think maybe if 5 games from now, they don't have a power play goal, then I might be concerned. Do you think 5 games is too long? Do you think right now is too long? Kind of where are you at on that?
Well, to me, it's not so much about the fact that they haven't scored, because that's just going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like, you're going to go through spells of not scoring. That happens to every team. What's more concerning to me is just the process. The process by which they've gotten to that no goals. Because if you were, let's say, the San Jose Sharks right now, who in their season so far are highest in the league in expected goals for per 60 on the power play, and they hadn't scored yet, I would say, well, that's gonna turn around.
Yeah.
But the Ducks are the Ducks are 21st in expected goals at 5-on-4 on the power play, which is the bulk of power play time. And so that is concerning to me, because that shows it's not just the results are one thing. I would never base all of my evaluation on just the pure results, the actual output in a small sample, but it's the process which is concerning to me. They don't look really in sync on the ice. I don't think Dallas Eakins is putting his best guys out there, and the numbers bear that out. It's fairly obvious that is an issue. Now, am I concerned that this is going to be a major issue moving forward? No, because even though the underlying numbers don't look good early on, underlying numbers are still subject to that kind of small sample noise, although they're much less subject to that, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And so I guess I am concerned, but not by the fact that they haven't scored.
Real quick, question. Joshua's data has kind of a sample size question. At what point is a large enough, or what's an adequate sample size, in your opinion?
I mean, we're getting to the point, we're getting there. We're getting there, I promise. 10, 15 games. It's still small, but at that point, you're talking about a tenth of the season. That's starting
Yeah.
to be somewhat significant. But 20 games is really kind of, I think, where it starts getting real. 20, 25 games.
Yep, I was gonna say 20 games is kind of my cutoff point for,
because it's a fourth of the season. It's a quarter of the season.
I think
that's significant.
It's interesting to look at the numbers right now to get a feel for kind of what you've seen versus what the numbers are bearing out. But before you can make a sweeping judgment on a team, in terms of how they actually play, if they're good, if they're not, you need to get that sample size. And I think 20 games is the right amount before for you to start looking at that and be able to make a judgment. Are they good? Is this a flash in the pan? Is it sustainable? All of these different things. If they're just having a good week type of thing. And so I think 20 games gives you that sample size.
Yeah, it's just the numbers are just very underwhelming, and that's how they've looked as well. So
real quick on that, Bonnie did ask, why do we even talk about numbers now then?
Yeah, I mean, why do we even watch the games? Well, let's just turn the TV off until the All-Star break.
The reason why we look at numbers now is they still can tell us what happened in the game. I think once you build that sample size, they can be more reliable.
Well, no. So that's not.
Are you gonna?
I think just saying why even talk about numbers is a little reductive, because ultimately we're not looking at just saying don't look at any numbers because none of them matter. I think we should be clear that we're not using certain numbers. So, for example, we're not looking at wins and losses because ultimately, those are decided by goals. And goals in a small sample, first off, they're very rare. They don't happen as frequently, and they're more subject to variance, to puck luck. So because those numbers are more luck-driven, and yes, I'm using the word luck, sorry, Jake, then it's harder to trust those. It's harder to trust the end result in a small sample. However, expected goals, so the number you get based on the quality of looks and chances and the actual volume of them, shot attempts, scoring chances, shots on goal, those happen at a much more elevated rate, and those tend to hold over time. Those aren't really subject to bounces, to just a hot streak. And so, yeah, you could still argue that anything can happen in a 5 to 10 game sample with those, but it's just less likely. I would argue it's significantly less likely. So yeah, we're maybe a bit guilty of kind of being a little hypocritical here, but I don't think we should just say, well, let's not look at anything because small sample. That's overly reductive.
Yeah, I agree with
anyway, we're so far down the rabbit hole. It's okay. We should just rename this podcast the Rabbit Hole Podcast. I mean, we're just going down the rabbit hole.
We go off on tangents all the time. So
well, I actually think the tangents tonight have been barely tangents, and I think they're actually constructive, which is good. We're not talking about cereal. Yeah, stick around for the cereal talk.
Wait, are we gonna talk about cereal? Because I have thoughts.
No, I hope we don't. Beginning of the third period, David Pastrnak would get a hat trick, and talking about faceoffs, so maybe this doesn't look all that good on our part here, but off of a faceoff loss by the Ducks, actually technically a faceoff win. So Sam Steele wins it back to Jakob Silfverberg to Josh Manson, and it just pops off out from his skate, and then David Pastrnak swoops in and collects the loose puck and just fires it home past John Gibson. So again, on a technically face-off win, the Ducks get burned here.
Yep. So yeah, it's on a face-off win. It just kind of goes just right to the wrong spot, right to the wrong person, to David Pastrnak, who finishes it for the hat trick. Catches John Gibson kind of sleeping a little bit, but it also was just such a quick release that he wasn't really able to react to it and get down quick enough to make the stop. I mean, I think that this is kind of the story of this game, that sometimes having elite level talent can keep you in games and win you games. I mean, the Ducks have seen that from the goaltending perspective. I think that this was that from the perspective of both goaltending with the lock playing out of his mind and having that top line of Pastrnak, Marchand, and Bergeron.
Right. Well, speaking of Pastrnak in that top line, so after the Ducks take yet another penalty in the third period, this one coming from Ryan Getzlaf, a rough sorry, not Ryan Getzlaf, Max Comtois holding against Charlie Coyle. David Pastrnak would get his 4th goal of the game. How many 4-goal games have we seen in the NHL this year? I feel like it's happening to everybody.
Yeah, I'm not quite sure, but
what's that gift? You get a 4-goal game. You get a 4-goal game.
At some point, is Joe Thornton going to get one?
I really hope so. Okay, moving on from that as quickly as possible. Pretty standard, power play goal here. Ducks going low to high, gets sucked up to the point. Marchand gets the puck in the right circle, draws in all the defenders, and then just wires home a perfect pass to Hampus Lindholm. Not really a good look for Manson and Lindholm. Lindholm is on the wrong side of Pastrnak, leaves him open, and Manson is unable to protect the middle of the ice there, allowing that to go through. Ducks would make a push, though, actually a very significant push in the third period, outshot attempting and outchancing the Boston Bruins. Adam Henrique would also get on the board. So like we were talking about earlier, that line, really getting it done for Anaheim. Nick Ritchie would steal the puck from Jaro Halak, just kind of mishandling the puck behind his own net. He gets it back out to Adam Henrique, who just buries it home. Funny enough, on NHL.com, if you read the description of this highlight, it says Brett Ritchie steals the puck down low.
Oh, really?
So,
wow.
Yeah.
That's
there you go. Poor Nick Ritchie. We'll always live in the shadow of Brett Ritchie.
Yeah.
Yeah. So all that being said, Ducks dropped this one 4-2, a game that maybe they could have won. Special teams did them no favors once again. David Pastrnak kind of just doing his thing also didn't help. Final takeaways or just general thoughts from tonight's game?
General thoughts from tonight's game. I thought this was a really good game from the Ducks. You look at it overall, you can look at the power plays. They had, 5 power plays on the night? 4 power plays on the night? And they ended up not being able to convert on any of them, so that definitely is going to play a slight part into it. If they would have gotten 1 or 2 of those, obviously, if they get 2, that's a tie game. Also, one of the Bruins goals, the second one, came right on the heels of a Ducks power play that was unsuccessful. So it was the Lindholm turnover that led to the goal against. So I think you can isolate very specific moments where the Ducks look bad in this game, but I think this is a game where if you look at the numbers, it's gonna be a game where there's a whole lot of positives that can be taken away, because this was a Bruins team that made the Cup final and were very good last year and are very good again this year. And the Ducks had a lot of glorious chances. I mean, in that second period, they had 2 different 3-on-1s. One that Max Jones shot right into Jaro Halak. You had the Getzlaf one where maybe he overthought it a little bit, and then you also had 2 different breakaways with Ondrej Kase. That goal, or that breakaway by Kase, he pulls off the move that he scores on a lot, which is that forehand, try to open up the goalie slightly, pull it to his backhand, then go top shelf with it. He got it up, and Halak was just there with the blocker and read it. And part of it is that you just got to tip your cap to a goaltender having a very good night. And then you also have the Max Jones one breakaway that led to a penalty and a power play for the Ducks. So I think this was a situation where the Ducks probably outplayed the Bruins, deserved more than the 2 goals that they got. I think on one hand, some people may look at it and say, well, they didn't score, so it's a lack of scoring talent. I think I'm going to take the more positive and optimistic side of that. They got all of these chances, and against a very good and a very stingy Bruins team. This was a very defensively sound Bruins team, and they got all of these chances and were able to keep getting the chances against them. And that's a very big positive. And I'm of the mindset of, if the Ducks keep getting those chances, whether it's against the Bruins, whether it's against the Red Wings, whether it's against the Kings, goals are going to follow. This is kind of where I went after the game, because a lot of people were starting to freak out a little bit. I didn't see it as much, but supposedly Ducks Twitter was saying we lost 4-2.
Second loss of the season, by the way.
And so, but
point out.
this is kind of my thought on the entire season. I mean, shocker here. I don't think the Ducks are going to win the Cup this year. I don't think anyone does.
Wow.
I think even the
bad fan.
Yeah.
Bad fan.
Even the biggest Ducks fan in the world doesn't, like, the most loyal, most kind of, they can't do anything wrong.
The guy with the painted face at Honda Center?
Even
you're telling me he doesn't think that? I don't know about that.
Yeah, maybe. Regardless, I don't think the Ducks are going to win the Cup this year. And so I think that from my perspective, I'm not looking at wins and losses. I'm not looking at needing to win these games against the top teams to prove that the Ducks are a contender. What I want to see is the process. The process right now matters more to me than anything else. Because here's the thing. If the process is correct, the wins will eventually follow. They may not come right away, but they'll follow, and they'll continue to follow. If that process isn't right, even if you're winning now, and this is what we saw last year with the Ducks. They were 5-0 to start the year, if you remember. But the process they had in those 5 games was not right. And it all came crashing down like anyone could really predict. And so in this game, you look at the process. You look at shot attempts. 41 shot attempts for, 34 against at 5-on-5. Even if you adjust that for score and venue, it's 38 for, 36 against. So the Ducks still got the better of the shot attempt battle. If you look at scoring chances, 26-15 at 5-on-5, 13-5 at high danger chances at 5-on-5, with 10 high danger chances in that second period. In that second period alone, they had 1.27 expected goals for, only 0.37 against. They had 2.17 expected goals for in total on the night, 1.24 against, for 63%, 64% expected goal for percentage, all at 5-on-5. And when you adjust that for score and venue, and for those of you out there that don't know, score and venue just means essentially when you're trailing in a game, you're historically going to get more of the scoring chances, or more of the shots and everything. So it's going to adjust for that. So if you're trailing and you have, for instance, a 70% Corsi for percentage, when you adjust it for the score, it's basically going to bring it down to maybe more like a 60%, because it's going to adjust it and try to regulate that as if it was all at the score was tied, basically. And so when you 5-on-5 adjust, or when you adjust it for score, they were at 63%. So they were the better team tonight, and I don't think that's very controversial to say. The Bruins got extremely great goaltending. The Ducks, for the first night this season, did not have John Gibson play out of his mind. John Gibson was probably average tonight. I don't know if that's too harsh on him. I don't know if you agree or disagree there, but I think John Gibson was average tonight, which is going to happen. He's not going to be superhuman every day, especially when you look at the circumstances of today's game. Hey, I said today, being so early, and it's a situation that you want to see the Ducks be able to create those chances. You'd love to see them be able to pick them up, but this was probably the best game they've played this season. And I don't know if that's even that controversial.
Yep. My thoughts on John Gibson's game after our second break here. Okay, so back from the break, just to wrap up on the overall thoughts from tonight's game, you were making the point about John Gibson and maybe this wasn't his best game. I wouldn't argue. I mean, I would say that, yeah, he wasn't great tonight. If you just look at from the expected goals perspective, let in 4, expected was 2.5. I would argue, though, that expected goals probably underestimates a little of how good those chances were that actually did go in. All that being said, though, John Gibson has basically been the best goalie in the NHL so far. Yeah. And there's just going to be games where he's not that. And you look at the way the Ducks have been winning. Although, yes, the Ducks have been an improved team from last year, really the way that they've been winning the grand majority of their games has been through John Gibson stopping over 97% of shots headed his way. And that's not a knock on the Ducks. It's just saying that when your goalie is that good, you're going to win most of the time. And when your goalie is even slightly below that, well, it's going to be harder. So the Ducks are probably going to have a few games like this in the near future where they're going to play well, probably well enough to win, if not deserve a better fate. But, if they don't get the goaltending, then it's going to be tough. Or if they can't bury their opportunities, it's just going to happen. That's just the way that the sport works. Other things I did want to talk about, though, any thoughts on Max Comtois' game? Because now we've got a little bit of a bigger sample here, 2 games overall to kind of judge his body of work since being called back up, making his debut. Any thoughts on his performance?
I thought he was fine. I thought that line of him, Comtois, and Getzlaf, him, Kasha, and Getzlaf, They were pretty good on the night. They had a 69% expected goals for percentage, 56% Corsi for percentage. They generated a fair amount of chances. I'm right now just trying to look what his individual expected goals
Well,
for
he didn't
percentage.
have he didn't have any shots on goal,
Okay.
which is kind of a bummer
A little bit.
because when you're a player of his caliber, or I mean the caliber that we've been told he is of as a prospect, you would prefer to see at least some shots go through. Did register a couple shot attempts though, which is I guess positive. Or sorry, 3 shot attempts, but still, I haven't really noticed him the way that I was kind of expecting to. Just watching him in camp this year, maybe not even the actual main camp, but before that, he's just clearly so much better than his peers, other prospects. But I do think that I think Max Jones is better suited to be a third to fourth line guy right now and be a good one than Max Comtois is to kind of be either of those things, whether he's going to be a great top 6 guy or a great bottom 6 guy. Now, again, it is early to say, but the thing that you want with depth guys is you want them to be involved in the play. You want them to be controlling play or just to be landing hits or to be controlling the puck down low, winning battles across the ice. And Comtois tried to get into it a little bit today, got into it with Brad Marchand by the Bruins bench, by the Ducks bench, but he's not as involved as I would like him to be, not shooting the puck as much. And again, it's only 2 games, so he's got time to address that. But right now, he just doesn't seem quite as NHL ready as Max Jones, which is fine.
Yeah.
I mean, Comtois is younger. He's got time. I still like his upside, but he seems like he's struggling a little bit to find his rhythm.
Yeah, and I think Jones, like you said, he's more suited for the bottom, quote unquote, more bottom 6 type role. And I think Comtois doesn't exactly fit that right now. I think if he's with the team, you want to have him in a top 6 role. And I don't think he looked bad tonight. I think this was probably his best game that he's played so far. I mean, this was his second game, I guess. So I think he was more noticeable tonight than tonight. Oh, it happened again. Then against Columbus. And so I think that's a positive. I'd like to see him get a couple more games with the Ducks and see what he can do. I honestly would like to see this set of 12 forwards get another game together just to kind of see what happens. So we'll see.
Well, I don't know. That's going to be tough with Dallas Eakins.
You love writing that blender or the line blender.
I mean, narrative. It's true. It's just factual.
Yeah.
The lines have been pretty much different every single game.
Not a bad thing.
Well, you just said you don't want them to change, so I don't know.
I said the group of 12 forwards. I did not say the lines.
Yeah. Well, so with Comtois, I do agree with you, though. I would like to see a bit more of an extended cameo, not because I think that, it really hinges on how he performs, but just to get an actual feel for, okay, where is he at now in his development? I think it's just not enough to really know.
Yeah.
And again, this season for the Ducks isn't just about the win-loss column. It's about knowing where their guys are at and how close or how far away they are from being NHL players. And so, yeah, with Comtois, I would like to see that. It's your favorite time of the show here, Jake.
Oh, it's the time?
A reference to the Canadians I'm about to make.
Oh, I thought it was a different time. Damn.
So Claude Julien had an interesting quote going into the game of Montreal against St. Louis on Saturday. So the Canadians have obviously kept Nick Suzuki on their team, to start the season. And he's a young player, a young skilled player. And he's been playing on the 4th line, which is, we always assume if it's a young skilled guy that it's either he's in the top 6 or he's in the minors. And Julien actually said, well, I'm putting him on the 4th line because I don't want him to have the pressure of having to score in a top 6 role. I want him to just go out there and play his game without needing to feel like he's being evaluated by his offensive numbers, basically. And I found that really interesting because I agree with it. We always kind of assume that a young guy, if he's not scoring, if he's not producing in the top 6, that he just shouldn't be in the lineup at all. Now with Comtois, the only reason I said earlier is I don't see him in either is because you still have to be able to hold your own in that depth role, and he's not there quite yet. But
yeah,
it just goes to show that you shouldn't be afraid to use younger guys, all over your lineup if they can handle it. Even if even a fourth line role isn't necessarily easy in the NHL by any means.
Build the best line possible.
Yeah,
They're the best lineups
shocker.
possible. Yeah.
Shocker. Putting good players will be helpful.
So I think it's the time of the show, and this is what I thought you were referencing. I think it's the time for the Twitch spiel. So for those of you watching the recorded version of this on YouTube, and if you don't know, we're on YouTube. Search for AC Pod. Subscribe to the channel. Like the videos. If you want to comment there, I'll read them. I'll reply if there's something. If you ask a question or there's something that needs to be replied to, something along those lines. But so check it out. Hit subscribe, Felix. If you want to point to where the subscribe button is on YouTube, wrong direction. Point down. There you go. And if you hit the notification bell, you will get notified whenever our videos go up. If you're listening, and then we also have the recorded audio version that's on any of your favorite audio podcast platforms. But we do a live stream of the show each and every time at twitch.tv/acpod, where you can watch and join in live in the Twitch chat. And there's a way for you to help support the show in a way that's completely free to you if you have Amazon Prime. If you have Amazon Prime, you also have Twitch Prime. And with that, you can subscribe to your favorite streamers on Twitch in a way that's completely free to you, and it helps them out significantly. And with that subscription, if you give it to us, you will get a special emote next to your, or special badge next to your name, special emotes in the chat. And if the Twitch chat gets crazy like it can during the year, we will prioritize your questions when we get into some questions. So we have gotten some new subs over the past little bit, so I do want to give them shout outs. Tabio Yasu subscribed 2 days ago. B Arm subscribed earlier today. Our good friend and fellow Anaheim Calling writer, editor, everything. The one and only Bonnie subscribed for the 13th straight month. Chad,
Wow.
our good buddy Chad, Quack City 22, resubscribed for his 9th month. And Lewis X209, our good friend Lewis, also subscribed for 13 months. So thank you so much for all those people, especially the ones that have been with us since the beginning. Really does mean a lot. And if you don't know, every 30 days you do have to hit that subscribe button. Felix, point up. Felix, point up. The subscribe button is up there. All right, so let's get to some questions, because we've got some actually really, 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 really good ones. The Twitch chat is giving us some good stuff to go with. So let's go with this. Zenaz8 asks, should Sprong come back up, or would he not really help with the lack of goals? I think we're going to get a lot of questions about Sprong, but I think it's a relevant question when you look at the fact that they're struggling to put goals in, specifically on the power play. And that's one kind of area that I think Sprong had an impact a bit last year. And I don't know what you think about that. I'm trying to gauge off your facial expressions what you're thinking.
Well, with Daniel Sprong, I don't know how much he really changes coming up. Again, I don't think that the Ducks' issue is the guys that they have on the roster. It's just which guys are actually playing specifically on the power play. And so I do think, though, that just as a matter of fact, getting him up on the team would help their overall offensive numbers, because you just have more offensively capable players. That's not that hard to figure out. But offensively, on the power play, I don't think Daniel Sprong comes in and fixes their issues, because their issue isn't really a lack of guys who can get it done in that regard. It's just actually playing them. And if Dallas Eakins isn't playing Troy Terry, who he had such a, and by the way, I'm saying not playing. It's not like he hasn't benched. He's just not using him enough, in my opinion. If he's not playing Troy Terry that much, I don't see how he's going to use Daniel Sprong anymore in that. And the other problem with Sprong and Terry is that they kind of both occupy the same area on the power play. So I don't know. I mean, I think Daniel Sprong makes the Ducks better overall, but I don't think he fixes that special teams area of their game. I just don't see it.
Felix, I'm so proud of you. You're defending Troy Terry. So proud.
Well, I mean, yeah, because now there's a reasonable basis to do so.
Fair. Just had to point it out. Just had to point out that you're the one going out of your way to defend him, not me.
Yeah, I feel like I've taken up the mantle more than you have. You've kind of you've gone a little soft in your
I haven't gotten
fandom.
soft. I'm just kind of taking a back seat. I'm enjoying the view from back here, letting you drive this bus.
You're letting me deal with the other bad drivers while you lounge in the back seat.
Exactly.
Okay, that's fair.
Bob Shockey asked, did anyone really stand out this game, or did the Ducks just turn in an overall decent game?
I think that the top line stood out. I think that there's
what are we
some
considering
concerning
the top
signs. Well, yeah, so we didn't really touch on this that much, but I think that I feel pretty comfortable saying that the top line for the Ducks right now is Raquel, Henrique, and Silverberg.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Anything that lasts more than a period with Dallas Eakins, I have to assume he likes it. So I would say that that's their top line right now. It's the most complete line. It's the line that has all NHL veterans, and it's the most offensively potent line. And they also turn in good 5-on-5 performances. It's not just like they're getting hot at the right time. Um, some concerning performances though on the other side of that ledger. Hampus Lindholm and Josh Manson didn't have kind of their
Yep.
their usual great 5-on-5 game. But I mean, you're playing against one of the best 5-on-5 teams, maybe the best 5-on-5 line in the NHL for the last 5 years. So I'm not going to hold that too much against them. But Fowler and Delzato continue to be a bit of a disaster, and Larson and Holzer actually looking a little decent.
Yep.
So kind of a mixed bag in this game, just if you're looking line by line, player by player.
I thought basically all the lines looked pretty decent, except, I mean, really, it's just that the fourth line, the Derek Grant line. They just tend to get hemmed into their own zone and get shelled
I
with
mean,
pucks.
if Derek Grant is in the lineup against next game, sorry, if Derek Grant is in the lineup again next game, I will be a little surprised because I don't really get it. I mean, I know that it's just the fourth line, but every line matters. It all adds up. Every little piece adds up to a bigger piece. And he looked pretty bad on some of these goals. And I just think they have better players for that spot. Like, why not put Devin Shore as your fourth line center?
Yeah.
It just makes so much more sense. So
Yep.
we'll see.
Yep. And I mean, Sam Steele came back into this game. What do you think of him? What do you think of that line of Sam? Sorry, this is going off the question a little bit, but what do you think of Sam Steele, Troy Terry, and Nick Ritchie as a line?
Yeah, so I would say that with Sam Steele, it's really hard to evaluate him right now, only because, regardless of what you get from the numbers, it's hard to know how comfortable he is. He didn't really have much of a training camp. Hasn't really had an opportunity to gel with anybody. So it's just really hard to say. I don't really have a good answer. I mean, I thought he looked fine. The numbers are kind of atrocious for that line, which is not encouraging. I'm not really going to read into that a whole lot, just because, again, he hasn't had really an opportunity to gel with anyone. I'm waiting on that a little bit.
He also was the one who sprung Andre Kasha out on the breakaway, and so he had a couple nice heads up passes.
Yeah, no, that's what I'm saying. Like it's a mixed bag. He's got good moments, less good moments. I'm just kind of looking at it as a wash. I don't have a hot take there for you guys.
Lewis X209 asked a question, and also if you want some hot takes on different divisions, because this is about the division, go check out our most recent Patreon episode where I had a pretty hot take about the divisions in the NHL that you got to go listen to hear. But which division has the best group of goalies? Which division has the worst group of goalies?
Ooh, that's a good question.
I think.
I'm just gonna reiterate what you just said. So Jake and I recorded, and we'll get into this later. We recorded a bonus episode on Saturday. Took a look around the league, and it was actually one of my favorite bonus pods we've done in a while because we went really in depth. But looking at best goalies around the league right now, oh geez.
You know what? I have an interesting take on this.
Let's hear your take, because I think I know where I'm leaning, but
I think the Pacific is both the best and the worst.
That's impossible.
They have let me explain. I think they have some of the best goalies in the league. They also have some of the worst. So I think that depending on where you're looking at it in the division, and I know this isn't fully answering the question.
Because it has to be overall.
Yeah, you're looking at the division in totality. But I think it's funny because the Pacific have some of the best goalies in the league, with Marc-Andre Fleury having the seasons that he's had. Darcy Kemper had a great year last year.
So now Marc-Andre Fleury is a good goalie. By the way, Jake and one of Fleury's biggest haters, I should point out.
I'm not a hater. It's just I don't think it's going to be sustainable.
Except it's been sustained.
He's old.
So I would say the division with best goalies is the Atlantic. The Atlantic is the best in a lot of things, and I think goalies would also be a category I would include. I mean, Boston Rask, Toronto Anderson, Montreal Price, Florida Bobrovsky, Tampa Bay Vasilevsky. I still kind of like Craig Anderson, so I would say it's the Atlantic, and I actually feel pretty good about it.
Okay. I don't have an answer.
Sorry if that doesn't include John Gibson somehow.
Damn. All right. Piggy 7 SWAT asks us a question. Are the Ducks going to be this year's version of the 2018 Islanders? And then in parentheses added that being a team that relies on good defense and goaltending and a team that could get in the playoffs and win a round. So I'm just going to jump in before you and say no. Mainly because the Islanders were a team that really just kind of stopped games from basically having a lot of shot attempts. I think the Ducks are, at the end of the day, going to be a decently high event team where they're going to have a fair amount of shots for and a fair amount of shots against. I think that they're going to have great goaltending. So if you want to make that comparison, it's there, but I think it's a completely different scenario.
I mean, I could see the resemblances because I think that the way that this Ducks team is going to be successful is probably not going to be through high-powered offense. But I also don't see them being like last year's Islanders where it's not just that they were relying on goaltending. It's that they really weren't that good at 5-on-5. I think the Ducks have the potential to be that. So, yeah, I think you could draw some parallels, but ultimately I think it's a bit of a different territory, like you said.
Yeah. All right. So we've got this question from CMonkey001. Is Aiken still tweaking his lines because he's still trying to figure out what works the best? Kind of like an extended preseason. What are your reasonings you think he's switching things up so much?
I mean, I don't know. I haven't really followed him for that long, so I don't really know game in and game out how his reasoning works. It just seems like when things aren't working, he just immediately changes them and just changes them game to game. So I don't know what he's necessarily waiting for to settle in. I think it's just when the Ducks start scoring. I mean, it sucks to say, but a lot of decisions are just made off goals. And I think once guys start scoring a little more, he'll probably keep the lines together.
Probably. All right, so let's get two more questions because I see two more in our chat that are decent. Bob Shucky asks, when was the last time the Ducks shook up their power play coaching lineup? Do we know who's running the power play and who's running the penalty kill? Because I know in years past it's been pretty obvious, or it's been kind of stated who's run what when Paul McLean. Wait, nope. Why am I spacing?
Yeah, Paul McLean.
Yeah, Paul McLean. Was here. He was the guy that was clearly in charge of the power play, and Trent Yawney was in charge of the penalty kill. I don't know if that's the case. I know last year it became more. I think
it's Mark Morrison.
Well, I think last year they started to do it where everyone, like both coaches, had a say. So I'm not quite sure. Actually.
Yeah, well, Marty Wilford is pretty clearly the defense coach.
True.
And so I think it's Mark Morrison, just kind of process of elimination here. Yeah, I mean, we don't talk a lot about assistant coaches because it's harder to pin down what they really do, how much of an influence they do have. The one blind spot that Morrison seems to have consistently is the power play. If you look at the Ducks power plays in years past, just so heavily reliant on the point shot, so heavily reliant on those kind of inefficient shots that are less likely to score than, say, a one-timer coming across the center of the ice. So, yeah, I mean, I don't know if it necessarily – I don't know how much of a say he has versus Dallas Eakins. Their power play is taking – as much as I harp on it, their power play is still making some positive strides this season. It still looks generally better, but I kind of see them already falling back into some old trends, which – I don't know. It seems like it's like this every year with the Ducks that I've noticed, or at least the last 2 or 3 years. They start the season trying some really new stuff on the power play. Like I remember at the beginning of last season, Brandon Montour was finally in that left shooting circle. And I thought finally they're using him where he's probably going to be most efficient. And that lasted about 4 games. And we never saw it again. And now he's traded. So I don't know. They just got to stick it out. You're not scoring anyway, so you might as well try stuff.
Yeah. We have this question from Joshua's data. Where do the Ducks find scoring? The kids are still sitting at 0 goals. Are you concerned? And this is, I think, my addition to this. As we talked about the power play. As we talked about the power play. A lot of people out there are concerned at the fact that the kids all have 0 goals. There have been no goals from Troy Terry. There have been no goals from Max Jones. Max Comtois did not score a goal this year on his first shift like he did last year. Sam Steele, no goals. Are you concerned?
Yeah, he down year, hasn't scored on his first shift. It's all downhill from here.
I knew you would like that one. Knew it.
Here's the thing. I think that every fan base is kind of a victim of this, but fans tend to overrate their prospects a little bit. It just happens. And if you were expecting Max Jones, Max Comtois, all these guys to come in and immediately light it up, well, that just wasn't realistic. I think that watching these games, Troy Terry seems like the only guy who right now has a shot of being an impact offensive guy this season. I'm not saying for their careers, but this season. Comtois still looks a little raw. Jones is starting to trend towards depth guy more than he is offensive guy. And so that's just kind of how these things work. Every prospect is just a range of outcomes. And when you have as many as they do that are vying for roster spots, you're bound to get at least one that's going to be good. And to me, that's pretty clearly Troy Terry. It's something that we talked about, though, at the beginning of the year. A lot of the way that this Ducks season is going to go, or how high they can fly, is how quickly these younger players can progress into NHL players. So I'm not really concerned about it, because this is kind of what I expected, that at least one of them was going to look good and a couple of them were going to struggle. Yeah. Now, I think that the one thing that we're forgetting here is that Sam Steele has barely played.
Yeah.
So I think that Sam Steele is going to come in and change people's minds a little bit about the young players, because with Sam Steele is obviously an NHL player. You saw that last season. You saw that in the few preseason games we got to see. So I think with him coming back and finally getting his legs underneath him, I mean, obviously fingers crossed for his sake. But once Sam Steele comes back, gets some regularity, Troy Terry picks up a couple, I think that people are going to change their tune on that. And that's also going to take a little pressure off of Jones and Comtois to kind of fly under the radar a little bit.
Yep. I agree with you completely there.
Wow. What is wrong with the world?
Yeah, exactly. But I think that's going to do it for tonight. I don't really see any more questions in the
It's also
Twitch.
11 p.m.
It is. I think it's time we wrap up.
You have to be up at 6 a.m.
And really quickly, Monica, come here.
Oh, no.
Monica, come here. It is my wife's birthday in T-minus 45 minutes. So if you're listening to this and it is October 15th, it is my wife's birthday. So I just want to say happy birthday to my wife, Monica, and she is not wanting to come on the camera. So happy birthday, Monica. So yep.
That's very nice of you. Happy birthday to the one who tolerates you.
Yeah,
that's well worth a birthday wish.
To the one
and also
who
kind of allows
all
this to happen.
Yes.
Yeah, to puts up with the show. So
exactly.
that should be duly noted.
That tries to stay quiet in the background and meow a little bit. Would you like to meow on microphone? There you go.
There we go. Now, with all of that out of the way, thanks everyone for listening tonight. Just to go over a couple different ways that you can support our show. We are trying to grow our Patreon page, which we've already alluded to, but we record bonus content. We're trying to add content every month. So for $1 a month, just a simple pledge to kind of show your support without making too big of a commitment, you just get to show that, hey, I'm listening and I support you guys do. But you still get access to our patrons-only Discord chat, where you can join in to the conversation when there's breaking news, when we have debates, when we're soliciting you for show ideas. The Discord chat is a very fun place. Now, at $5 a month, which is I would say a substantially greater contribution than $1, but still really not that big when you think about it. You actually get 2 additional podcast episodes a month, and these can be of topics of your choosing. We typically go league-wide. We also go and kind of off-script sometimes, which can be pretty fun for the listeners. So we're looking for ways to grow this page, though, and give you more ways to not only support the show, but also so that you get more benefit out of it. So, Jake, why don't you tell people a little bit about the drive that we've got going on here?
So we have our Patreon drive going on, and so we are getting awfully close to our first goal here, where we are going to host a Patreon exclusive watch party. So for those of you that have been patrons the whole time, last year that we did a watch party for you if we hit a certain goal. Well, we're doing something similar this year. So if we hit $350 a month, and we're currently at $293, we will do a watch party. And the big perk to this getting done in October is that if we finish this in October, all October patrons, whether you want to just jump on and support us for the month and then jump back off because you can't financially do it for more than a month, that's fine. But if you're an October patron and we hit the 350, you will be able to come to the watch party even if you jump back off. If you want to help us get past 350 and up your goal, that works also. So the other goals that we have are $500 a month. We'll do a live Patreon exclusive show. $750, we're going to add another bonus episode, so we'll go up to 3. $1,000, we're going to do a watch party and host a live show after that. And then at $1,500, we'll be doing 4 bonus episodes a month.
Yeah. So that's quite a bit. That's quite a bit of content. So once again, if you're a fan of the show and you want to see it continue, because this is a labor of love for us, but we have to make it work, then that's going to be at patreon.com/acpod. Now, another way that you can support the show, which is at of no financial cost to you, it's by simply leaving a review on Apple Podcasts if you are an Apple user. So simply type in Anaheim Calling or Anaheim Ducks on Apple Podcasts, and you will get the show appear. You could simply tap on it, leave a review. I think it's like 2 or 3 taps, and then you just type it in. It takes 5 minutes, and then you're done forever. You just get to leave that rating and review, and it really does help the show climb with the rankings. And I believe that we have a new review to talk about.
Yeah, and so we have a new review, and it's from the place that my shirt's from. It's from the land down under.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's great for everyone that's, listening and can't actually see your shirt.
That's a good point. It's a video element, Twitch stream, YouTube video. You'll get it. There's a kangaroo on my shirt. There we go. Now the people listening can understand. It's from Australia.
Yes.
So
great.
I also do want to make note. Let me know if you've left an Apple Podcast review from another country and we haven't read it yet. I'll be able to go back and find it now that I have a better way to track it. So please reach out to me on Twitter. If you want, DMs are open for you to come in. So we got this one. Said, great listen after every game. 5 stars from Church91. Said, very well done podcast, and I can't wait to listen to the thoughts, discussions, and debates that are had about each game. I'm still learning about the game, so the fact that they stop and explain for the listeners that don't know what different things means is something so many shows like this lack. Listening from Australia where the NHL isn't common knowledge. Keep it up, guys. Go Ducks.
So if you're wanting to watch a live Ducks game in Australia, what time would it be?
Oh, now you're making me backtrack to when I was over there for my honeymoon. Okay. I can't remember if it's early.
So now
I think it's noon.
Right now it's 11:20 p.m. here on the Pacific Coast of North America. And so in Australia right now it's 5:20 p.m.
Yeah, I remember it being like 1 or 2 p.m. when I was over there when a game started.
So let's see. So what's that difference? It's a plus 11 hours.
It's like 7 or 8 hours. It's like 7 or 8 hours behind. Well,
so it'd be early morning when you're watching.
Let me better.
They're ahead.
They're like they're like,
basically all the way around the globe.
Yeah, they're like 17 hours ahead of us.
Dateline.
The best way I explained it when I was there to my family was that we're a day ahead minus like 7 or 8 hours.
Yeah. So basically,
it's like noon.
When the Ducks are on, they would be, I think, early morning for them or something like that.
No,
or I guess maybe
it's like
be
noon.
Before noon.
It's like noon or 1.
Yeah, exactly. So that might not be a terrible time of day, depending on the day.
It's like watching soccer over here.
Yeah, you get it out of the way quickly. But anyway, thank you so much for that review. Really do appreciate it. For everyone who's left one, wherever you are in the world, I think it's pretty cool that people are listening even down in Australia. So thank you very much for that. Once again, that's on the Apple Podcast app. Of course, if you're not an Apple listener or an Apple user, you can always just listen or subscribe to the show through Spotify as well as Stitcher, really, and also YouTube, like we've talked about, wherever you get your podcasts. Now, finishing off here, of course, make sure to check out AnaheimCalling.com. That's at Anaheim Calling on Twitter. Check out Jake on Twitter at ReindeerGames91, and I am on Twitter at Felix_Sicard. We'll have an article going up over at the 4th period, I believe, on Wednesday. So I'll be tweeting that out if you want to read that. about the difference in this Ducks team compared to last season. And Jake has some rankings.
At some point this
out.
week, I will write them. Potentially Thursday morning, if not.
At some point this season.
At some point. If not this week,
I can guarantee
maybe next.
within this season, Jake will write a ranking article.
How about this?
Mm-hmm.
I will write a rankings article as long as someone gives me a suggestion of what I need to rank. And it's something
that seems fair.
So someone give
you
me
need
a
little
suggestion.
push,
yeah.
a little oomph.
I need that push. I need those writing juices flowing about something that I need to write about to make people mad.
Yeah. What I found is that the writing juices tend to flow when I actually start writing. So someone told me that recently. If you want to beat writer's block, just sit down and write, and it will come to you. And it actually works. It's weird. Anyway, thanks a lot for listening, guys. We really do appreciate it. And we will catch you at the next podcast, which will be post this time back to kind of a regular time after the Ducks take on the Buffalo Sabres at home. That game is at 7 p.m. Pacific time. So we will talk to you then.
Bye.